So this colony here didn't survive winter, and if I just leave it just like it is, then pests will move in, namely small hive beetles, and they'll lay eggs, and their little larvae is kind of like a maggot, and they make a big mess, and they destroy a lot of the resources. And also wax moths a little bit later in the year. If I don't open this up and clean it out, then the wax moths will move in. And so I'm going to show you what's inside of a deadout. And this is the sugar shim to hold the dry, to give it a cavity to hold the dry sugar. And this is the dry sugar that absorbs moisture from the colony, from the cluster. So when moisture comes up off the cluster, it gets absorbed into the sugar, and that way it doesn't drip on the bees. So these bees died almost certainly because of the high mite load. They get viruses from the mites, and the mites are very hard on the bees surviving winter. And that is entirely my fault for not keeping the mite numbers down in the fall. I did do some treatments, but not enough. So what do I do with the remains is I can reuse this sugar, collect it all in a bucket, and then in about a month or so, whenever they're needing nectar, because I do a lot of splits, and small colonies don't get to go out and forage as much as a big colony. So when I do splits, I feed them sugar water, but I'll save all the sugar. When I finish cleaning off all the sugar and putting it in the bucket, I'll bring it back. Okay, I have all the sugar off of this that I can collect easily. The rest of this I can't hardly get much more. Then I'll scrape the top bars. If there's a lot of propolis on the edges of the box, you can clean that up pretty easy right now. Okay, so now I can go through these frames one by one, and the outside doesn't get propolized because of the bee space, but then all these shoulders, I clean the propolis off the shoulder, and any extra comb that I don't want on there, and any dead bees that are easily removable. Set that first one aside. This is a heavy frame. It's got a little bit of honey and pollen on that side. This side is almost all capped honey. So just like all the other deadouts that I've went through so far, they didn't run out of food by any means, but they died from viruses caused by the mites. So clean up these shoulders. I can put this frame back in. It's good to go. They just need to rub it out. So whenever I'm done, I'll leave all these frames in here, and I'll make the hive even more open, top and bottom, and that way the bees can get in here and rub this out. If you leave honey in these combs, then it'll attract the small hive beetle. And if you leave pollen in the combs, the pollen will attract small hive beetles and wax moths. That one's pretty good. It's heavy. It's got a lot of honey in it. So when I'm done cleaning these frames, I put the top on it sideways so that there's a gap on the front and back, and that lets in a little bit of sunlight, and that little bit of sunlight deters the pests from moving in. Wax moths really don't like sunlight, so they look for a dark place to hide. These deadouts, if the cluster is still hanging onto the frames or hanging onto the comb, I'll watch for the queen. If she's in there, then I'll hang on to the dead queen. Whatever dead bees are easily removable like that, I go ahead and knock them off. But otherwise, later on when you give these frames back to another colony that's healthy, they'll remove all the dead bodies from the cells. So these are perfectly good frames. They just need robbed out. So I would rather them not have any honey in them at all. So since they're getting robbed out, that honey is getting reused anyway. Just watching for the queen. And I watch for the queen whenever I'm doing these cleanouts. And there she is right there on the tip of the tool. That one right here. So I'll find the dead queen and I'll save her, and I'll put her in alcohol. My camera ran out of memory, but what I do with the queen is I put her in alcohol, in a jar of alcohol with all the other dead queens that I come across. Whether I have to pinch a queen or for whatever reason, if there's a dead queen, in this case it's just a deadout in the wintertime, I'll save that queen and put her in alcohol. And then I've already went through the rest of the frames and cleaned off all the shoulders, any burr comb that I didn't like, scraped all the propolis. Everything's nice and clean now. They just need to get in here and rob it out. One other thing I do before I close it up, I have screen bottom boards. So whether you have screen bottom boards or solid bottom boards, you really need to get in here and dump your dead bees out. So especially in a deadout, you're going to have a lot of dead bees. And so I dump all them out, scrape them off. The reason why you see this board here is so that I can set a 5-frame nuke on this bottom board, and that allows me to have either a 5-frame nuke bottom board or a 10-frame nuke or a 10-frame bottom board. So that board doesn't interfere with them. It just gives me an option to use it as a 5-frame nuke from here over. Almost lost my queen. Still got her right here. So then I set this box sideways on the bottom board. That allows access into the bottom from here and on this side, as well as on these two ends over here. So there's 4 sides that the bees can enter on the bottom of the box. So I want them to have very easy access in and out of this. Take my inner cover and turn it on, put it on there sideways like that. So this hole in here and this hole in here is open to the sunlight. And to keep my inner cover out of the weather, I go ahead and put the telescoping cover on it. I make sure that there is bee space so they can enter and exit right here, as well as on the other side. So this is the same gap here as it is here. So the bees can come in and out 2 sides on the top and 4 sides on the bottom. The bees will finish cleaning this out. And by April or so, I'll be reusing all these gone combs, making splits, and all this resources is good. Even the sugar that they failed to eat will still be utilized. Everything will get recycled. There's frames in here with pollen. If we have a shortage of pollen in the spring, then I can reuse that and put it back into the healthy hives. But they're already bringing in pollen, and my living colonies have pollen patties on top of them. So I don't have a pollen shortage by any means. But all the other resources will be utilized. And that's how I clean out a deadout.